Mr. Gavin and Mr. Wright are both in the judge's chamber. Who'd have thought today would turn out like this? Secret guest?
Serene, why don't you take it?
Oh,
my God.
Josie!
Hello, sir. Please pick a card.
Pick a card. What's all this about?
Any card.
Is this one okay?
Excellent. A message for you. The last hand is about to be played. You'll need a trump card to make it. Use it wisely, and the game is yours.
I'm guessing this is the 5 of hearts, then. Probably.
That's all.
Oh, it's not. It's an ace of spades. With blood on it.
Blood?
Excellent. The missing 5th ace. Wait, this blotch of red. Is this blood?
You have your trump card. Now it's up to you to cut the deck and draw the truth. My father's fate is in your hands. I know you can do it.
I fell deep into thought as my mind raced to understand what this all meant. That girl. I'd seen her recently. But where? That's when I made the connection. The locket, exactly. And now it's just Apollo. Oh, such a solemn sight.
Court will now reconvene. Defense Attorney Kristoph Gavin, will you please take the stand?
Oh, he's taking the stand
Ah,
now.
there he is.
Now then, if you would, Mr. Payne.
Yes, Your Honor. Well, Mr. The witness state his name and occupation.
Is this farce necessary, Your Honor? Believe me, far stranger things have gone on in this courtroom. Fine. I'll play along.
Interrogating a parrot is among those, I imagine.
How did you know about the secret behind the victim's hat?
By secret, I'm guessing he means the fact that Mr. Smith was bald.
Forgive my curiosity, but what is it about this fellow's head? Your Honor seems to have an inordinate interest in it.
Ah, there it is again. The original Oh! Yes!
And the original objection music.
Oh yes, the original objection theme.
Oh my god!
Oh, this is beautiful. I love this.
What do you think you're doing, Wright?
Well, things sure look different from the other side. You know what I mean, Apollo. Speaking of looking from the other side, let's consider something for a second. They're also just letting him stand there. Just...
yeah, they're just like, oh, don't worry, it's not a big deal.
Well, I mean, technically the defendant can stand with their lawyer, I believe.
When Mr. Wright returned from reporting the crime, the hat was lying on the floor. Mr. Wright picked it up and placed it on the victim's head. In other words, in order to have seen Mr. Smith's bald head, you would have had to be at the scene of the crime, at the time of the crime.
In other words, you'd have to be the real killer, is what you're trying to say. Mr. Gavin? I'm afraid that I haven't been entirely honest with the court.
What?
Oh, I assure you, I had the noblest of intentions. I did it all to protect my client, Mr. Wright. Yet, I'm afraid in the current situation, I see little reason to hide anything. Very well. Allow me to tell you the truth of what happened that night. Finally! You may begin your testimony.
The judge is also getting fed up.
Yes, even Judge wants to know.
Even Judge wants to go home. Have warm dinner, I suppose.
The rage I sensed in that man that night troubled me, so I returned to the club. I went down to the basement and peeked in through the little window to the hideout. It must have been right after the murder took place. The victim was dead, as he appears in the photo. A bald head, an unconscious girl, and Wright holding a bottle in his hand. I sensed that was not the best place for me to be at the time, and so I left. That's when the call came from Wright.
Okay, a lot to work with.
For better or worse, I missed the actual moment of the deed. Mr. Gavin, may I remind you that you are on Mr. Wright's defense team? Your testimony is clearly disadvantageous to your client. What else could I say? I'm standing on the witness stand, after all.
So you are, Mr. Gavin. And you had to testify as you just did. You had to tell them you saw the scene of the crime through that little window. Mr. Wright?
Mr. Justice, are you prepared?
Yes, Your Honor. I can't believe I'm going up against Mr. Gavin. This trial is getting weirder and weirder. Alright. So let's start pressing. Those were the only 3 at the scene of the crime?
Yes. As far as I saw, at least.
And we're back where we started. The killer was the defendant, Phoenix Wright. Who else could it have been? But, why didn't you talk to the police?
First, I didn't actually witness the very moment of the crime. Second, my office was asked to defend Wright. Even after seeing what I had seen, I couldn't abandon my friend.
But that goes against what Mr. Wright said.
Ah yes, this mysterious 4th person. Who would conveniently be the real killer, I suppose.
Glad to see we agree, Mr. Gavin.
Let me pose a question, then. Tell me, what possible reason did the real killer have to swap cards in the victim's hand?
Remember, Apollo, the card that was swapped out was the 5th ace. The 5th ace? Right.
We used the bloody ace card.
Well, Mr. Justice.
Yeah, that makes sense. That falls into place. The defense would like to present evidence to the court. Evidence showing the reason why a card was swapped out.
Then go ahead and point out your reason, Mr. Justice. Why did the killer take the 5th ace?
Because there was blood on it.
If that's an ace?
Oh dear. Why, it's got blood on it! Right next to the spade! What?
Oh no.
This is insane! Why wasn't I told about this? Why?
Could this be the missing 5th ace?
Yes, it is.
Presumably.
Inconceivable. How could you? What are you doing with that card?
Well, that's the thing. Why is Mr. Gavin so upset?
Oh, gee, I wonder.
It's just a fishy card from some fishy girl. Oh, that card? It's mine. That is, I picked it up at the Borscht Bowl Club that night after the murder had occurred. I gave it to my daughter. Cards are her stock and trade, after all.
No! Impossible. Unacceptable. The court can't accept this evidence. It's a fraud.
A fraud? How can you be so sure?
What?
I would think the only person who could claim it was a fraud would be the one who took the real card from the crime scene. The real killer.
Shit.
Ooh. Allow me to elaborate.
You're dead now, Kristoph.
What if this trace of blood was the reason?
The reason for...
Swapping the card. For the killer to take the card from the scene of the crime.
Where are you going with this?
Take another look at the photo, and at the victim's head. At the moment of the crime, his hat fell to the floor, and a trickle of blood ran from his forehead down the back of his head. Couldn't a drop of that blood have fallen on one of the cards? I suppose... The killer then took the card to hide the blood.
Regardless, that evidence is non-permissible.
Oh?
Right. Regardless of how you wasted the last 7 years, you used to be a lawyer. You know what a serious crime it is to conceal evidence.
Oh, we can discuss the finer points of our legal system later. What's important now is that I've answered your question.
What are you talking about?
You wanted to know why the killer would have taken a card from the crime scene. And now, I've told you. That one drop of blood would have been decisive evidence, you see.
This is baseless conjecture. Baseless!
He's gonna say the funny thing.
Oh no!
Oh god!
Oh, is this the line? Oh, there it is!
Hello, base department.
He said it's quite base! Let's go!
Base department?
I forgot about that line. I didn't even know it'd become a meme.
Oh, I assure
Chat,
you, it's
screenshot.
quite based.
What? How could your claims be based?
It's amazing, really. How a single drop of blood on a single card can lead us to the based truth. It's quite simple. Well, Apollo... yes? Try picturing the scene of the crime. In your head. The murder took place in the hideout. The body of the luckless victim was found at the poker table. And, before the killer swapped the card out, there was a single card with a drop of blood on it in the victim's hand. Given this, there is one decisive problem with this scene.
Well, what is it?
Let's keep it simple, shall we? Given that there was a drop of blood on a card, whose position in this diagram doesn't fit? The victims? The killers? The witnesses? The second witnesses? Whose position doesn't fit with the bloody card?
My
fucking card.
So the witness is Olga, and then 2 is Kristoph. Let's see.
It's a little hard for me to...
No, that's not what I did. No,
Oh no!
I wanted to check the court
Push the
record.
button.
The music did stop. The problem with this picture is here.
What exactly is supposed to be here?
The table, Your Honor. My hand must have slipped. Sweaty, you know? It really
Apollo,
was.
Stop leaning on the
Oops,
fourth
I just
wall.
gave you a penalty. Hand must have slipped.
Okay, but this is the 5th ace, which should have been in Phoenix's hand, but it wasn't the victim's hand, right? Because the victim's hand had the blue card, I believe.
Yeah.
So it was taken out of the victim's hand. Okay, but I think we can make this much easier, and if we suppose that Kristoph was the bad guy, then his position wouldn't have made sense, right?
Why don't we try? It'll be interesting, but could you save before we do that?
That I can.
If I remember correctly, it's not Kristoph, but I'm curious to see what they say.
The second witness's position is the problem.
The second witness, that would be Mr. Gavin, yes? The second witness's position is far less problematic than yours right now, Justice.
Uh-oh. Okay, so it should have been either the killer or the victim, I imagine.
I don't actually remember. I'm gonna hazard a guess and say it was the victim.
I was also going to say that, as a gut feeling. Okay, the music continues, so probably this one is correct. Well, isn't it the victim's position that's the problem?
I don't follow your logic here, Mr. Justice.
I confess I don't either. Well, look, the victim was struck on the head, sending him back in his chair. You'd think any blood would fall behind the body, not onto the table in front of him.
Yeah,
that makes sense. That makes sense, alright. Take a look at the photo again. If he bled in this position, the blood would fall on the floor, not on the cards. So we have to assume that at the time of the murder, the victim's chair was facing away from the table.
When Mr. Wright returned from informing the police, which way was the chair facing?
Well, to watch the table, right? When I came back to the room, the body was facing as seen in this photo. That would mean the killer turned the chair back around. Let's take the next step. Look at the diagram once more. I'm glad you called it a diagram and not a photo. We know now the victim was facing away from the table at the time of the murder. But this creates another significant contradiction. Let's test your reasoning skills again, shall we? Apollo, whose location on this diagram contradicts our new understanding of the crime?
My first instinct is probably the killer, right?
It was
I think
yeah, because he was hit on the
the-
forehead.
Yeah, he was hit on the forehead, yeah, so why would... The killer can't have hit him on the back of the head.
Because in this position, the witness was more in a position to hit the victim. You can try it.
Sure, let's give it a shot.
The victim was struck
Yeah,
from the
yeah.
front, correct? Indeed. Well, wouldn't it be hard for the killer to hit him from the front, sitting where his indicator currently is? I would think it'd be quite hard, yes.
Yes, but what you're saying makes no sense.
It looks like we are right, surprisingly.
Yep, we are, yeah.
Why would the victim suddenly turn to face the wall in the middle of a game?
There's something in this diagram that makes far less sense, actually. Look again at the diagram. Apollo, if the victim was struck while he was sitting as shown here, where would his assailant be standing? We know the victim was toward the wall at the time of the crime. That's the only thing we know for sure. Try to forget about everything else. Where would the killer have been standing to strike our victim from the front? Well, in the wall, or in the closet, I guess. Forget everything else, sure. The killer had to be standing, well, here.
You get points for flair, but that's about all you get. I hardly need to point out that standing there would be impossible. The victim is facing a solid cupboard. Or are you claiming the killer climbed the cupboard and hit him from above?
It's simple logic, really. If this was the only place the killer could have been standing, then that means that, at the very moment of the crime... Wait! I know! At the moment of the crime, the cupboard wasn't there. Your Honor, I have a suggestion for the defense. We should arrange to examine the cupboard in the hideout immediately.
Bailiff, send a team to the crime scene immediately. Have them try to move the cupboard.
There's one more thing your men should look for. Please give this to the bailiff.
Yes, I see. You do belong in the courtroom after all, Mr. Wright.
I do my best. But let's forge ahead here while we wait. Look at the diagram once again. It's been changed.
Oh.
Apollo, try moving the cupboard. If you say so, sir. There we go.
Oh no, the window's being blocked.
Oh!
Means the second witness would have no way to see the crime scene.
I wouldn't even have noticed that if you didn't say it. As you can see, the cupboard was the problem. At the time of the murder, it has to have been as shown here. Now everything is in place to reconstruct the moment of the crime. Oh my! What's this?
Oh, what's this?
Ooh, it appears we found yet another contradiction. What I believe to be the final contradiction, in fact. Huh? Oh dang! Notice something, Apollo? Our line of deduction is rapidly approaching its logical conclusion.
And now then, Mr. Justice, please point to this new contradicting indicator. Is it the victim, the killer, the witness, the second witness? Which indicator in this diagram contradicts what we know about the crime?
But now it has to be the second, yeah, obviously.
Yeah, now it has
I don't have to explain this to anyone. About this cupboard. Are we all okay with assuming it was moved? Sure, why not? Well, if it was, something really doesn't fit. The cupboard would completely cover up the window to the stairs. Someone standing outside wouldn't be able to see in. Someone, like Mr. Gavin. So, Mr. Gavin, perhaps you'd like to explain to the court. Exactly where did you witness the crime scene from?
Excuse me, Your Honor. We just now received word from our investigative team at Borscht Bowl Club. They have examined the cupboard in the hideout, Your Honor. It turns out there's a secret passage behind it.
A secret passage? Ah, yes. I believe I mentioned something of the sort before. This is one of the tricks the room many of our regulars know about. The other side connects to the restaurant above. The underworld bosses could get away from the cops. And enjoy a cold bowl of borscht, no doubt. You see where our line of simple deductive reasoning has led us, Apollo. I see it, but I don't believe it. That girl wasn't kidding when she said I needed this trump card for the last hand. At the time of the murder, the window was blocked, and the victim's hat was only off his head for the few minutes between Mr. Smith's murder. and Mr. Wright's return from calling the cops. In other words, the only place anyone could have seen the victim's bald head was from inside the hideout. Well, Mr. Gavin, come on, say something.
Dare I ask what really happened that night?
Actually, I think we can probably figure it out ourselves at this point. That night, for whatever reason, our killer had a date with Mr. Smith. A date with destiny. There he crouched, hidden in the secret passageway behind the cupboard. Holding his breath, waiting for just the right moment. Then the chance came, and he took it. Miss Olga Orley was out cold, struck by Mr. Smith. But his time was soon to come. Mr. Wright went upstairs to call the cops, leaving Mr. Shady Smith alone in the hideout with the unconscious dealer. Then our killer stepped out from the secret passage and into the hideout. Why are these stick figures so menacing?
He's just standing there,
menacingly. The victim must have heard the cupboard sliding aside. Oh no! He wheeled his chair around to look.
No.
After the deed was done, the criminal must have seen the blood on the card. He would have, of course, realized the need to destroy that evidence. That single spot of blood told the whole story of the crime. Too bad for him he didn't linger any longer in the hideout that night. If he had, he might have noticed the cards on the floor. And the fact that they were all red.
Well, it seems this trial has taken yet another turn.
I thought it was over.
I'm truly sorry I had to see this day come, Mr. Gavin. As for Mr. Phoenix Wright, the defendant, he is hereby cleared of all suspicion.
Let's fucking go!
Believe me when I say that I don't believe this is happening, Mr. Gavin. But I'm afraid circumstances call for me to issue a warrant for your arrest. Immediately.
Oh. Of course, always. At the final stretch.
Oh, no need to apologize. I rather enjoyed myself. It's not every day you get to witness a legendary attorney's dirty tactics firsthand.
Your point, Mr. Gavin?
Frankly, Your Honor, I'm shocked that a person of your caliber would be taken in by such a low-grade parlor trick.
What is this bullshit?
The defendant is cleared of all suspicion. This is hardly the time for jokes, Your Honor. Mr. Wright hasn't proven anyone's guilt or innocence here.
Oh, he's not wrong.
What he has done is use illegal evidence to put the blame on someone else. And not just anyone else, but me, his own defense attorney. I love the animation that you can see his smile twitching.
Let me ask you, Mr. Gavin. Is there still any reason, at present, to suspect me of wrongdoing?
Of course. This bottle, for instance. How do you intend to explain away the fingerprints on the murder weapon? And not just any fingerprints. Am I right, Mr. Payne?
Actually, yes. The fingerprints on the bottle were upside down.
The court, and this case, demand an explanation. I can think of only one reason why one would hold a bottle upside down. And that is to hit someone with the bottom of the bottle. Well, Your Honor?
Damn, he just keeps coming back at us.
I mean, he's not wrong.
Yeah.
Like, Phoenix never gave a reason for holding the bottle upside down. Your boss seems awfully concerned about this bottle still. But I'm sure you can come up with a suitable explanation. Just like that. Take another look at the court record. I believe you'll find a simple answer there. In plain sight. How about you just say the answer in plain words? That's an excellent suggestion, actually.
Perhaps the defense would care to enlighten the court. What evidence do you have to explain why the fingerprints on the bottle are upside down?
Ooh.
Okay, I do remember this part, so I won't tell you.
Well, I assume it has something to do with this photo because it hasn't been relevant yet. He could have just picked it up out of the crate.
Yeah, there is no unwritten law stating that you must pick up a certain object in a certain way.
I think it has to be this one, frankly. It's actually easier to show you than explain, Your Honor. Place that bottle on the floor, next to your chair.
Excuse me? On the floor?
Yes. Now, reach down and pick it up. Without getting out of your chair. See? You naturally go to pick up the bottle by its neck. With your fingers upside down.
Whoa.
Oh,
Whoa!
shit! Whoa!
Look at this photograph taken on the night of the murder. The defendant, Mr. Wright, sat here, playing piano, bottles of grape juice on the floor to the side of his piano bench. He would have naturally picked up the bottles upside down several times.
I can't believe it was that simple.
Occam favour.
I was drinking my usual juice then, too. Basically, you used the bottle on the table to do the deed. You could have worded that better, I feel. So you went and picked up one of the bottles from under the piano. And you switched the bottles. You took one of Mr. Wright's bottles and make it look like the murder weapon.
So this is the legendary attorney's famed tactic of misdirection. You claim that I switched the bottle. Where is your proof?
Mm-hmm. Nothing counts in the courtroom but proof. Proof? Well, that's,
As I thought. More baseless conjecture. I'm afraid your bottle of proof is quite empty.
I wouldn't be so sure about that, Your Honor. When you initiated the investigation of the hideout earlier, do you recall I requested an additional investigation?
Retrieve the bottles from under the piano at the Borscht Bowl Club.
Oh, he thought of everything.
Phoenix
And
said it
here's
again.
one of the bottles in question. Huh. What, are you going to dust that for fingerprints too? I would be surprised if any were on that but his.
Say, Apollo. Yes. Why don't you go ahead and examine that bottle? But why? Just humor me. Phoenix has got some sass over the years, man. That bottle will solve this case once and for all. Oh, is the card in it? Oh, there's the card.
There it is.
There's the
Card
card.
is inside.
Oh,
Look at that.
Huh. There's something inside the bottle. What's this?
That card? It can't be.
Recall that unpleasant woman's testimony for a moment. Miss Olga Orley? Yes, our little swindling... Oh my fucking god. Devochka.
Russian word for Russian.
That night, I planted the card like I was supposed to. And Wright lost the last hand, just like he was supposed to. Then Smith searched him. But the planted card was gone. The trap failed.
Wait, this isn't... You're telling me that this is the planted card you disposed of?
Oh.
The famed
Five
card.
of heart.
The Five of
Just
Hearts.
like he said.
This is the card. The bottles were swapped. And the only one who could have done that was the fourth person in the club that night. You, Mr. Kristoph Gavin. Oh shit.
Oh shit.
Oh, there we go.
There it is. He's breaking.
The lobster. Damn, what a finishing line.
Is this your idea of revenge, Phoenix Wright? Revenge? Revenge for the events that took away your attorney's badge 7 years ago.
This is a trilogy spoiler. The original trilogy.
My past
Or is it?
is like my logic.
I can
Straight and
guarantee
true.
you. The events that he's talking about don't take place in the trilogy.
No, I don't think they do. He doesn't get
No.
disbarred in the original
No, he
trilogy.
doesn't.
Nothing's changed.
Ah.
All I did was point the finger of justice in the proper direction.
I'm glad we could have this little tete-a-tete, right?
Was that a Laszlo reference?
This is insane! What about me? Don't I get to prosecute anyone?
I believe this time we've finally come to the end of our trial. Mr. Payne, do you have a report for us on Kristoph Gavin?
He admitted everything. We're processing his arrest now.
I see. Still, one has to wonder why he would do such a thing. He didn't even have a connection to the victim, did he?
None that we know of.
Mr. Wright, have you anything to add?
I'm afraid I can't shed any more light on the matter.
About this victim, Mr. Shady Smith. His occupation was listed as traveler. An odd profession, to be sure, and that's all we know about him.
I'll arrange a follow-up investigation, Your Honor.
Good. Mr. Wright,
Yes?
7 years, and you still haven't lost your touch.
Kristoph Gavin was a man with much significance for me, both as a friend and a lawyer.
He was extremely talented, to be sure.
I needed two things before I could confront him. The first was a place where no injustice would be tolerated. This courtroom.
Not exactly.
The second was a man who would tolerate no injustice. In other words, a defense attorney. You, Apollo. A dark time is coming for our legal system. A twisting of justice brought on by the very own court system. We have to set it right. Our work lies ahead of us, and I, for one, am looking forward to it. Oh, he looks so gentle here. This is so nice.
Yes,
What a nice
that's
fellow.
a rare expression. This seems like a good time to announce a verdict. This court finds the defendant, Mr. Phoenix Wright.
Not guilty.
Not
There we go.
Confetti! Court is adjourned.
Did we do it?
We did it.
It's the
Yo, wait.
pyrocynical.
It's canonically 420 in this game. Thanks, Apollo. Actually, kind of disappointed we didn't get the pursuit theme anymore in pursuing Kristoph.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, don't worry, it'll be around a lot more.
You came through, just like I thought you would. I'm pretty sure I didn't do a thing in there. It was you who cornered Mr. Gav, the killer. I couldn't have done it by myself. You sensed it too, today, didn't you? Your ability. What was that, Mr. Wright? You'll have to find the answer to that question yourself. The answer... right. Today was full of questions without answers. Most of them about Mr. Gavin. What possible reason could he have had to commit murder? Perhaps you'll learn that in the days to come. Huh? Wait, you don't know, do you? This locket is the key. Huh? Oh, that reminds me. I met the girl whose picture is in your locket. Trucy, yes.
Good old
She's
Trucy.
adorable.
Your daughter, right? I took this off his neck the night he died. But it looks like our dear Russian scam artist saw me. But that's perjury! You testified! You said that locket was yours! I said
That
no
is
such
because-
thing, actually. I merely said that it was a locket with my daughter's picture inside. A subtle distinction, but a distinction nonetheless. And it's the truth.
Lying
Wait,
by omission.
wait, but then, why? Why was the victim wearing a locket with a picture of your daughter inside it? Sometimes, the straightest path to the truth isn't the best one. Give it time. You're still just getting started with your career. Speaking of which, I may be out of a job. I work for Gavin Law Offices after all. I still can't believe I just saw Mr. Gavin get led away in handcuffs. Apollo. Yes? How about coming to work for me?
Hey.
Huh? You mean at the Wright & Co. law offices? I mean, there's not a single attorney in my generation that doesn't know it. I can't imagine that to be true, but... Wait, but didn't you... You're not a... Oh, I turned in my badge, yes. I'm not an attorney anymore. That incident 7 years ago. That legendary trial. And at the middle of it all was one man, Phoenix Wright. The case reached its sad conclusion, and he left law for good. Have you ever thought about coming back to the courts? I'm not qualified to stand in a court of law, I'm afraid. Didn't you notice in today's trial? There was a single piece of forged evidence. Forged evidence? What are you talking about? I'm talking about evidence that shouldn't have existed. A naughty magician's trick.
A magician's trick like Truthy?
A magician, you don't say. One piece of evidence struck me as odd, it's true. It just seemed, well, too perfect. I'll bet this was the forged evidence. Well, the card then, right? I now realize that the phone hasn't been relevant at all.
Oh, I mean, we'll have to...
That's true, yeah, the phone hasn't been... Wait, did the phone ever get...
No, it didn't. It wasn't useful.
I mean, the most
ever.
the phone was used was in reference to
It was just,
the
kind of a
Mr. Wright's call record.
But it has to be the ace. It's just too perfect. Well, no, don't check it, present it.
Yeah.
Yep, you are correct.
You mean this, don't you? I don't think this is a consequential decision, by the way, but you just miss out on some dialogue if you choose the wrong evidence.
Yeah, that's this is the traditional one that they, yeah.
I got this from your daughter, Mr. Wright. Yes, that card couldn't have been found at the crime scene. Why? Because the killer took it with him when he left. Leaving the wrong card in its place. Luckily for us.
The court can't accept this evidence. It's a fraud.
A fraud? How can you be so sure? I would think the only person who could claim it was a fraud would be the one who took the real card from the crime scene. The real killer. My verdict was already handed down 7 years ago. You had nothing to lose. Then, you really... Yes, I forged this card. One look at the crime scene should have told you it wasn't real. But you can't do something like that and call yourself an attorney. Who's calling themselves an attorney, Apollo? So it's true. But thinking about it, that is a really smart move, right? Because if Gavin had said, like, that's not a real card, and he had pulled it out, that would have also incriminated him.
Yeah. See, there's no way out of it. If he'd said it was a, if he hadn't said anything, then he would just be incriminated because it looks like he did it. But if he'd said it's not the real card, like how would he know?
How would he know unless he was the killer? Yeah.
Yeah.
It's such a smart move. Oh, this is great. I love this. The rumor is true. 7 years ago. None of that matters much now, does it? Huh? Why would he scream? Oh, okay.
I punched you.
It's your story from here on out, Apollo. Perhaps I can help you turn the next page. My office's address. Drop in, if you like. Mr. Wright. Oh, about your uppercut. An uppercut? Damn. Apollo. Try yelling, "Take that!" next time. I find it packs a little more punch.
Get it?
Oh, man. And Apollo, thanks for today. I had a good time. Damn, had a good time busting criminals.
Can we just take a moment to acknowledge where exactly that was done?
In the lobby of the courthouse, yeah.
Right.
If this was real life, Apollo should have been arrested on the spot for assault.
Well,
True.
you know, they're not exactly in Ace Attorney land. They're not exactly great at arresting people. You know, there are people who are like in the like literally confessing to murder in the detention center, and the guard is just like standing there doing nothing.
True. The bailiffs are just there for show. They're not actually doing anything. Oh, and with that, Mr. Wright walked out the door. And that's how my first trial ended. A lot of mysteries went unsolved. And, at the time, I had no idea they were all related. Every mystery that day, connected by a single thread of logic. I'd find that out soon enough. My name is Apollo Justice, attorney at law, and this is how my story begins.
Oh boy!
Oh man, the end. What a first case,
Yeah,
honestly.
that's my favorite
Great.
first case of the series, and it's not. I'm not going to spoil anything. It's taken me everything in me to not spoil anything for the later cases. But it only gets better in retrospect. Like when you look back at it, it gets better.
I mean,
Like,
I
you
imagine
think
it
about
does,
how it
because
connects.
there's so much that's still hidden right now.
Right, that's the thing. Yeah, so much. It's a big prelude. Yeah, which is
Yeah.
really cool.
Yeah, that was great, honestly.
Yeah.
It was fantastic, damn.